He was born on a tiny island that didn't even belong to his country. He was mocked at school for his accent. He was called too short, too foreign, too ambitious. And yet, by the age of 35, he controlled nearly half of Europe. This is not a story of luck. This is a story of obsession, genius, and the price of power. Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769, on the island of Corsica, a small island sitting between France and Italy. But here's the twist. Corsica had just been sold to France, like property, just 1 year before his birth. The Corsican people were furious. They wanted independence. And the young Napoleon? He wanted it too. When Napoleon joined a French military school, he was surrounded by the children of wealthy French aristocrats. They laughed at his accent. They looked down at him. But Napoleon didn't fight back with words. He buried himself in books, history, mathematics, philosophy. He read about Alexander the Great, about Julius Caesar, and quietly he made a decision. One day, I will be greater than all of them. In 1789, France exploded. The French Revolution tore the country apart. Kings were executed, streets ran with blood. And in the middle of this chaos, Napoleon found his moment. In 1793, a French naval base called Toulon was under attack. British forces from the sea, rebels from within. The French army was losing. A young 24-year-old artillery commander stepped forward with a plan. Capture the hill, control the cannons, destroy the British ships. His commanders laughed at him. Then they watched him execute it perfectly. Napoleon fought with fearless aggression, took serious injuries, and in 3 months, Toulon was back in French hands. His general wrote afterwards, "I have no words to describe this man's merit. He is an amazing man." At 24 years old, Napoleon was promoted to brigadier general. The outsider had arrived. But Napoleon understood something that most military men didn't. Winning battles was not enough. You had to control the story. Napoleon used newspapers, paintings, songs, and poems to build a powerful image of himself. He personally controlled 6 newspapers in France. He commissioned dramatic paintings showing himself as a heroic conqueror. There's a famous painting of Napoleon boldly crossing the Alps on a white horse, a symbol of power and glory. The truth? He crossed on a mule, guided by a local farmer. Napoleon didn't just fight wars on battlefields. He fought wars in the minds of the people, and he was winning. By 1799, Napoleon had engineered a political coup, removing the existing French government and placing himself at the top. Then, in 1804, he made his most dramatic move. He crowned himself Emperor of France. Not king, emperor. Beethoven, one of the greatest composers in history, had once dedicated his famous Symphony No. 3 to Napoleon, seeing him as a champion of freedom and democracy. When Napoleon declared himself emperor, Beethoven furiously scratched Napoleon's name off the dedication. "He is just a man," Beethoven said, "susceptible to power like all the rest." And Beethoven was right. Napoleon had once promised to liberate people from kings, but now he was appointing his own brothers as kings across Europe, Spain, Holland, Naples. He had become the very thing he once claimed to destroy. Napoleon's greatest strength, his boldness, became his greatest weakness. In 1812, Russia violated Napoleon's trade blockade against Britain. Napoleon's response? Marched 600,000 soldiers into Russia. But Russia didn't fight back. They retreated. They burned their own cities. They left nothing, no food, no shelter for the French army. Napoleon reached Moscow. The city was empty. He waited 1 month for Russia to surrender. They never did. The French army, starving and freezing in a Russian winter, began the long, devastating march home. Of the 600,000 soldiers who marched in, fewer than 100,000 came back. Europe smelled blood. In 1813, Britain, Russia, Prussia, Austria, they all attacked together. Napoleon was defeated at the Battle of Leipzig, exiled to the island of Elba. But even in exile, Napoleon couldn't stop. In 1815, he escaped, marched back to Paris, rallied his old soldiers, and reclaimed the throne. For exactly 100 days. Then came the Battle of Waterloo, his final defeat, his final exile. This time to a remote island in the South Atlantic called St. Helena, from which there was no escape. He died there in 1821. He was 51 years old. So, was Napoleon a hero or a villain? The truth, as always, is more complicated. His wars caused the deaths of millions across Europe. He reinstated slavery. He reversed women's rights. He was a dictator who rigged elections and controlled the press. And yet, the legal code he created in 1804 still forms the foundation of law in France and in dozens of countries around the world. He built the Bank of France. He reformed education. He ended feudalism. He introduced religious freedom. He modernized entire cities. Napoleon once said, "Power is my mistress. I have worked too hard at her conquest to allow anyone to take her away from me." He was honest about his hunger for power. Perhaps that's what makes him so fascinating. A man of extraordinary talent and extraordinary flaws who reshaped the entire modern world. Not because he was born great, but because he refused, absolutely refused to accept the life that the world had planned for him. The outsider from a tiny island who conquered an empire and changed history forever. That was Napoleon Bonaparte.